and welcome to the Together We Thrive series dedicated to inspiring and connecting social entrepreneurs. I'm Rachel from a House of Eden studio, and today we're going to be talking about creating a business with an impact model. So today I have joining with me the passionate Claire from Urban Kind, the determined Karen from Jump Leads, and the feisty Fiona from All Things Fee. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
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 So thank you so much for joining me here today. My vision statement is Together We Thrive, leading better business. And so I just wanted to ask you first, what does better business mean to you?
Better business to me is really doing what you do really well, but it having a positive social impact in kind of as many ways as is kind of relevant to what you do. And so I think that can apply in so many different ways in different industries. So I think it's really just having that heart for wanting to make a difference and actively making that part of the way that you do business yourself, and offer your services as well.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up perfectly. I think it's, looking at how you can improve what you do, and always thinking about the benefit to your community or to the environment. And creating a business that trades and either sells products or services, but in a way, that does benefit the broader community for the longer term too.
I definitely agree with Karen and Claire. It's about the bigger picture. So making sure that, you're aligned within yourself, but you're also helping other businesses and making sure that, we're all connected. So you have that ripple effect and understanding that, every decision you make impacts someone else or another business. So making sure that you're all aligned really well, and just keep growing and keep developing your business model.
Absolutely. I think one of the major reasons why I wanted to have this topic of conversation today is I think that creating a business with an impact model is not a one-size-fits-all solution. I think that every business has its own individual ways of creating a positive impact by doing what they do, and it could be an internal culture, it could be externally, it could be how they import or export, it could be looking at equality, sustainability, charity, and there's just even the way that they actually collect their sales or revenue, or might be grant related. There's just so many things to consider when you are creating an impact model. So I guess that I wanted to start the conversation off with what positive impact does your business have? And also if you could tell us a little bit about your business at the same time.
So I'm Claire Baker. I'm the founder of Urban Kind. We're a creative town planning and placemaking studio. So we have a collaborative business model. So I work with other people that I think are outstanding in their field and collaborate to deliver projects. The business is streamed so that I still do development planning because that makes money and it's very profitable. I was looking at sectioning that out and stopping that, but I realised that's actually what drives the impact, being able to kind of donate my skills and time to my local community or other communities and use my kind of skills and experience to help people with great ideas. The very purpose of my business is to help people live healthy, happy, more playful lives through interventions in the urban environment. So my background is policy planning, but I really like the people side of things. So really interested in kind of meaningful engagement and empowering local communities to think of their own ideas and implement them themselves, and helping them kind of link with, not like a Tinder's probably the worst, right? Worst kind of way to think of it, but providing a bit of a matching service between people that have really great ideas and people that have those objectives and the funding and want to do it. So I've worked for local government for many years, and so often they're like, oh, we need community members, we've got this cool idea, but it's kind of the wrong way around. Like community-led, I know in my experience that community-led things where you're actually empowering the community, listening to their ideas and giving them not just the tools, but coaching them along the way, so that then you're kind of doing yourself out of the process, so that then they go on and then they can teach other people and that impact kind of flows on. So looking at that kind of micro day-to-day scale of maybe a community garden example that I'm working on a project at the moment. With COVID, I've had a bit more time, so I've helped apply for a community grant in my local community. with a series of little projects there. So being able to show what I'm doing, I guess, is something that's really important to me, whilst then using that as a model for starting a relationship with your community. So often community engagement is, hey, we've done this cool project, come and be involved. Okay, now your involvement finishes. Did you think my plan was a good idea? Great, all right. Oh, you didn't? Oh, sorry, we're doing it anyway. So using that kind of front-end engagement to kind of build an ongoing relationship with the community, so then they've got a seat at the table in making decisions about those really big, long-term strategic policy-based stuff, about decisions that ultimately impact their day-to-day lives. So no small feat over here, but I'm really clear that with the experience I've had, there's a better way, and I actually see that. So I'm kind of in the startup phase of that part of the business, so just trying to roll that out slowly and reach for the stars, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. It sounds like that you would have an impact on so many different levels. Obviously it's on the community, but also you're actually engaging other people to create employment, and lots of other, like creating a more sustainable community. And
yeah, absolutely. That's at the core of everything. It's really about helping the people, and I picture it as kind of, I don't want to do it, I want to help the people that are doing it do a better job. So I've led strategic planning teams in inner city Melbourne, and two very different contexts and very different teams, but I really love helping people do a really amazing job at what they do. So I can do, but I'd rather help people get a better roadmap for how to deliver their projects themselves, and that kind of behind the scenes kind of coaching for them to thrive with their communities and keeping them at the forefront of doing what they do better.
Well, it also means that if you do it that way, then you also have the ability to make a greater impact and help more projects, rather than being deeply involved in one. You can help on a level with many.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Karen? What does impact look like to you? I know you have a few ventures.
Yeah, so I mean, the main one, so Jump Leads NFT is a not-for-profit. It's actually a certified social enterprise with social traders as well. And basically it has two divisions. So, its vision is about invigorating community. It's aligned to your work, Claire, actually, that invigorating community and creating culture change. And the way that we do that is in two areas. So we have a community division called Make a Change Australia. And through that, we do all this like community development, engagement and education programs and initiatives, a lot in regional communities. And we support communities to address challenges that they want to address, including across, say, health and wellbeing, environment, social disadvantage as well. And often a lot of the work that we do, so we run, our programs might be, events, big events that bring people in local communities together to share ideas and come up with new collaborations, or training workshops to help them be better at implementing initiatives in their community. And the impact there, it's like that ripple effect that was mentioned earlier. It's empowering those individuals with the passion and determination, and having them continue to build on what they want to achieve in their community. So that's the community division of Jump Leads. And then we have the arts division, which is called Pop-Up Art. And that is all about supporting creatives in local communities as well to be more viable. A lot of them have vision and want to be viable in their creative endeavours, it could be as an artist or another form of creativity as a business, or it could be a community project, but helping them to be more viable, because they're like this under-acknowledged sector of our community that are often the backbone of the vibrancy and livability and well-being of communities. So Pop-Up Art runs training programs and support for that sector to help them grow so that they can continue to be who they are in their communities. So a lot of community impact there.
I love that. And like you said, having that first-hand impact, but then also that second-hand ripple effect of the work that you do also helps the community on a larger scale as well.
Yeah, and just so one more thing with that is the way we do that work and have that impact is our model is we partner and collaborate with say local and state government agencies and other larger organisations that support that work and want to see that impact in their community as well. And yeah, so that anyone that participates in community, it's like it's funded for them, so they can participate for free, but we have to work in collaboration and partnership with those agencies in order to make that happen.
Yeah, it sounds pretty intense. Like there's quite a lot of elements to make it all happen. How many people do you have working?
So we have a small agile team of about 5 people, and we're based in Melbourne and I'm based in Bendigo. So a lot of our projects are in like Central Victoria or regional Victoria, and we've done some work in regional New South Wales as well.
And how about you, Fee? Tell us more about All Things Fee and the positive impact that you have.
So All Things Fee is an ethical online store for women's clothing. So we're based in Brisbane, and we've aligned with a not-for-profit as well. So what we do is we make sure throughout the brand that we align with our purpose, which is to help with ending poverty. So one of our not-for-profits that we work with is called Opportunity International. So how I kind of envision the whole business is that it's a social enterprise but with a fashion output. So so we're helping women become more conscious buyers and educating them on their decision process with clothing. And also, you can still, be creative with what you buy, but also be a bit more conscious about where it comes from and, what kind of ripple effect you're having with your buying decisions as well. So, it's just that at first we wanted to start off with an education aspect and building the brand with the core purpose of we can have a huge impact on ending poverty and providing opportunities for women in poverty. But we can also help first world country women as well, making sure that they feel empowered in their everyday decisions. So it's kind of hitting both on the head at the same time. So what we want essentially, which aligns with our vision, is to create more conscious buyers. So we're under no impression that, you can be all or nothing. So it is a slow process, it is slow fashion. So it's just getting the idea out there that, conscious fashion is a convenience choice. So once we make that the new convenience, then we can affect demand and supply and obviously create a bigger movement with sustainable fashion, and then align with not-for-profits at the same time. So we have inbuilt donations per purchase. So every time someone purchases from All Things Fee, we donate $1 per purchase to the Opportunity International Fund that we've set up with them, and they do microfinance for women in poverty. So that's their core focus. And at the moment, they've got a COVID-19 crisis impact model where they're actually building women leaders as health leaders in their community to educate the women on how to avoid obviously contracting the virus. So they're working on prevention and helping those women know what the impact is, and obviously making sure that they're provided for in regards to the basics, because it would be a bigger struggle for them to actually acquire foods and everything else. So it's just making sure that we're hitting every mark and it aligns to our purpose as well.
Absolutely. It's amazing to see that a charity like Opportunity International are actually pivoting and changing to make sure that they are helping with the needs of the people that they are helping as much as possible. The other thing that you have sort of briefly mentioned, but I think it's important to discuss, is probably actually buying the ethical products. So obviously it is about the education, but you're actually have this internal process that you actually go through to make sure that you are ethically buying as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So we've built the ethical fashion model within our sourcing capabilities. So what we do is we source ethical suppliers, manufacturers and brands within Australia and other countries. to make sure that they're not using any slave labour or child labour in their production processes. So making sure that they can obviously tick off their ethical guidelines on moral, and they're obviously aligning to fair work practices as well. So it's a huge impact that we can create to make other companies more accountable for their actions, and also making sure that everyone has equal opportunity as well. So that really helps with the process. It is quite difficult to find those suppliers, so it is a bit of a process, but it's so much more impactful as well when you can definitely say, you know, this comes from a good place where they're providing opportunities than actually exploiting people in fashion. It just feels like a feel-good brand.
Absolutely, it's the full circle of how you're purchasing, and then how the customers are buying, and then what you're doing. Claire, we touched on a little bit earlier, but could you tell us a little bit more about your backstory and what led you to deciding that you wanted to do more purposeful work?
Oh, look, I think I've always wanted to do purposeful work. And when I was younger, I thought I was going to go and do international aid work. I think lots of people grow up thinking that that's how you make a difference in the world. And my first degree was a Bachelor of Sustainable Tourism, so I was going to save the world through the environment. I graduated in 2002 and the world quite wasn't ready for the sustainability conversation, and I felt a little bit disheartened, so was kindly told by the careers advisor I'd need to restudy. So I was studying so I could go to London and change London. So then I studied town planning and then kind of started out in consultancy anyway, ended up in London in housing policy, and just was so inspired. I was working in kind of what now is a really kind of cool area, but in the time Waltham Forest, if anyone knows London, it wasn't, there was a Walthamstow, so we might want to edit this bit out, because it was like a Walthamstow murderer when we were there, so we couldn't work after dark, so we finished at 3 p.m. in winter. So it was a pretty scary area, but we actually really, what spoke to me was that the way that affordable housing was delivered was really, really sophisticated. And so then coming back to Australia and kind of deciding I wanted to be in policy, to me that seemed to be a really effective way to, one passionate person trying to deliver good projects isn't the same as changing that long-term policy and strategy. So to me, I thought long and hard how to do that. I did an aid trip to Africa while living in London, and I found it really, really, I thought that this was my new path. I thought that that's it. This is what I'm going to do forever. I'm going to disappear into Africa and I'm going to save everybody. And I had a really hard day one day at this orphanage, and the guy that ran the thing said, maybe your purpose wasn't to come here and help us. It was to go home and help you or your community. And it really, I don't know, it kind of bothered me at the time, but it actually reflecting recently on why I started my own business and how I've really just gone through this journey of working out what do I love, what am I really good at, how can I have the biggest impact, that I realized that 10 years ago, someone saying that to me really changed the course of my thinking. And even speaking to a lot of people at the moment in COVID-19 that lost their jobs, I'm going to disappear to Africa and save the world. And that's great. And look, their needs are really immediate. I've got a good friend living in Zimbabwe at the moment with her husband and 2 young kids the same age as mine. They can't come home. There's no flights. She works for the UN as the country director, and the work that she's doing is so meaningful. But then it's also meaningful, the stuff that I'm doing here in a community that's good, but women, I really target women with preschool age children, because you just bounce around on mat leave and there's nothing to kind of do. And so that's kind of where this started. So a bit of a long curvy way to kind of get there, but I think women are on the street every day doing things, experiencing a gender difference in the urban environment and in your workplace. So my husband and I have lots of robust discussions about whether or not there is a gender difference in the workplace. And I think there is. So part of what I want to offer is coaching young, high-achieving women. I've had amazing mentors the whole time, how to kind of keep your passion and don't get it stamped out in the wrong organisation, or find what they're good at and find a way to be resilient in the face of resistance to change, because they belong with us. They belong with other women like us, where so many men that have been my boss have found me very difficult, because I'm like, challenge accepted. We can't do that. Yeah, we can. I'm going to show you how we do it. And that's how I've delivered amazing projects and being able to kind of have the success that I have, because that's me. That's what I do. And I see so many women having children and getting disenfranchised and then coming up with a completely different life and business because they don't have the headspace. So it's also about bringing women back into the fold and saying, it's fine if you have a different passion, but it's kind of that holistic view of kind of community, people shaping communities, and really just creating a space for people to have discussions like this and feel supported in what that looks like, helpers, I guess.
How about you, Karen?
So yeah, my background actually, well, how I got into the not-for-profit and jump leads was I actually trained as an environmental engineer. So I worked for 10 years in corporate world and in Melbourne, grew up there, and moved to Bendigo with my young family at the time. So I had a 3-week-old baby. My husband was working in engineering in Bendigo as well. But what I started to do was, because I'm always been a problem solver, I love challenges, I love solving problems. So in my engineering world, it was the problems of water for governments and water supply for businesses and things like that. And then it started to lead into sustainability. So it started to think about environment and people and the triple bottom line kind of thing. So when I moved to Bendigo, I then got involved in, I was like, because I've grown up in community minded, but kind of in the corporate world, you're part of your business community, but you lose it a little bit because you're so busy working in the corporate world. So when I moved to Bendigo, I started to get involved in a community group called the Bendigo Sustainability Group. And in a very short time, I ended up becoming the inaugural president of the Bendigo Sustainability Group because, of course, no one else wanted to put their hand up. So I, over a period of about 3 years, just got so much learning and insight into what it is to work in community sector, to run and lead a not-for-profit, to work with volunteers, to engage with communities, we ran so many on the ground local initiatives, and they weren't driven necessarily by the committee, they were driven by the people that were members of the sustainability group and what they were passionate about. So that led me to think, well, actually another part of that was in that 3 years, I ended up putting so much of my heart and soul into that I also got completely burnt out.
It's real.
Yeah, once I stood down from that role, I started to think, well, hang on a second, there's got to be a better way to support people that are passionate to make a change in their community. How are we going to do that? And I was very fortunate to be accepted in a scholarship to the School for Social Entrepreneurs that was in Melbourne at the time, and spent 9 months delving and indulging in what this could look like. So from there, that's how I actually founded the Make a Change Australia, which was that community division of Jump Please I talked about. Yeah. And I just did that on my own for about 3 years, trialed and piloted lots of things, lots of learnings, of course. And then I met this amazing woman, Sharon Side, who was running this pop-up art initiative. And she's probably 15 years older. She's come from an international background working in cultural development and arts producing projects overseas. Amazing work, but she'd come back to Australia and part of a regional community who and wanted to do something with heart as well. She didn't just want to keep working in that corporate world. So we started talking, and we both recognised we had the same bruises on our head of what it's like to run and grow a not-for-profit in industries that are underfunded, under-resourced, not well understood. And we had similar kind of visions and missions in that we want to support community. Hers was in the creative, mine was in the more broader environmental, health and wellbeing and social sectors. So we joined forces, and so Jump Leads was her initiative that Pop Up Art was a part of, and then so Make a Change became part of Jump Leads, and now we share we're the directors of that. And it's just so amazing because, thinking about coming from engineering and now being part of this whole creative arm, and having that creative element in the generation of solutions and initiatives in community, it's been amazing. So we've been doing that for about 4 years now. And it's just continually evolving and growing. And it's very exciting to be a part of, even in the most challenging times.
But you know what's so inspiring about that is that people that feel like that they are nowhere near the place that they want to be, especially if it comes to something like impact, they might be still working in a job or something like that and they're not feeling on purpose. I think that your story is a perfect representation of that. It doesn't have to be like that. You can make those changes and life happens, and so will your purpose if you're passionate enough about it to continue.
And I think the biggest learning from it is actually I've been tuning into this more lately because I'm also renovating a house and I'm literally chipping away at paint peeling and sanding and puttying and filling gaps and all this stuff. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, this is exactly the analogy if you want to grow and make impact. It's not you have this idea and it just happens. You literally have to chip away at it. So I've been doing this for 8 years now. And, you know, in that time, many times I've wanted to leave and go, what am I doing this for? This is ridiculous. But my passion and my heart is in it, and it's like my life's work. And so just knowing that, you just keep chipping away. As long as you're moving forward, even if it's a little bit, then you're going to get there, hopefully, eventually.
But even if the impact's only one person, like you might change their whole world. And I think now is the time that this community and creative industry is so much a part of what I'm passionate about, bringing that at the beginning. Now is the opportunity. Like so much of this kind of conversation for what you do can be directed into this kind of post-COVID community connection recovery. Like it almost feels like the stars are aligning for everything you've been planning for.
Absolutely.
Your thing, but it's so important. What really struck me in that, sorry Rachel to kind of diving in, was just something I'm really passionate about too, is I too had kind of like a burnout passion thing kind of 10 years ago, and it took me a long time to want to get back into that space, because you've got to learn how to look after yourself to know how much you give, especially when you've got a family and a global pandemic. Like it's knowing when and how much to give and how to do that. And I think that's something that people in this field with so much passion, it's quite a typical character trait to then go, actually, that happened to me too. But then I think you get better because you know your limits, and then you're actually better at it, and you can share that experience with other people that are in your organisation, so you can kind of see the warning signs before they get to where you did.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've definitely seen that with those warning signs, but also that's why, the programs that we deliver is so much about the support for those sectors to help them avoid that burnout too. It's fundamental. And
people focus is key. And I think so much of the kind of, having worked in state and local government for some, decision making in these like places and infrastructure, and then people say it's a people focused, but actually the whole system needs to flip on the end and need people like you in there telling them how to do that.
Thanks. And also knowing that when I was talking about getting there slowly but surely, also not forgetting that the impact that's already been made in the process. Like we've done so many initiatives where people have completely literally altered where they were heading because they met another person that was aligned, and they were able to then develop something that's gone off and made a big benefit. That's already happened along the way. But I think the trap sometimes is when you're thinking about where you're heading and your vision, forgetting what you've actually already achieved.
I think that's so common. I see that a lot with women in business and not-for-profits. My sister started her business. I gave her a little notebook and I said, the only thing you're allowed to write in here is everything that you tick off your list. So when you're having that day, which we both do, have the same kind of characteristic of, that's done, on to the next, pausing, and she can look at that and see what she's done. So I've started to do it to myself too. And I think when you are a high achiever and you are someone that's always like, right, on to the next, you kind of minimize what you're doing. And I can hear so many wonderful things and feel a bit kind of like sad for you that you were like, then, this is where I want to be. And I was like, that's great, but take some time to relish in all that you've achieved. Like, your story is phenomenal. Like, it's nothing short of phenomenal. Like, it's amazing. So
thanks.
Just be kind to yourself too.
Thank you. Will do.
Fee, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background and what?
Yeah, sure. I'm caught up and empowered by both of you. So I'm enjoying it. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And yeah, definitely, I love meeting both of you, obviously, and making sure, like, you know, I feel like we're all aligned in our missions, and we're all kind of doing it in different ways, which is really great. That we can see that there's so many options, but we've got to find the right one that, you know, suits us. And as you said, I think you touched on it, Claire, was when you can at least impact one person, because I know we're probably all big picture thinkers, and we try to help everyone. So sometimes we can get stuck in that, how do we help everyone stage, and feel like we haven't accomplished much. But noticing that when we, you know, empower one person, we're actually fulfilling our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How did you come to start All Things Fee, and how did you find your purpose and your passion?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a mixed story. So I'm originally from London, so I know more than yeah, so I'm originally from North London, so I'm probably about 20 minutes more north from where you were, Claire. But yeah, so we moved here as a family about 9 years ago. So I've been based in Brisbane ever since, and absolutely love the lifestyle here and the opportunities. But being from such a huge city, and, you know, having to, like, you know, fight for your place, I feel like that's part of, you know, my nature. So being able to be forthright and, you know, this is what I want, this is the impact I want to create, and I'm going to go for it. And I think that really inspires people here as well, because it's a different kind of perspective. But it's also, interesting coming from that. If we touch on the fashion side of things, it's because the weather's totally different. So we're focused on mixing and matching clothing, and the real, like, sustainability of ethical fashion is huge in London now. It wasn't before, but the last 5 to 10 years, it's really been a succinct model. So being from that background is, you know, quite impressive. And then, you know, having to implement that into the business is kind of where I can show my personality and really bring that forward. So initially, my kind of work background has been, you know, more sales focused roles. So I've always wanted to connect with people, you know, find out, you know, what makes them tick, and being able to help them in, you know, different stages of their lives. So whether it's a business or a person. So I've had, you know, experience in recruitment, and also sales and accounts roles with agencies. So I've worked in the digital side of things, so client side, and the other side as well. So just a mix of experiences. And then eventually I worked in manufacturing. And before I started working in manufacturing, I had this epiphany where I was like, my future is going to be in manufacturing, and I feel like I need to build a manufacturer here in Brisbane to build the economy and give people opportunities. And I had that vision, and then I started working for a fine art manufacturer in Wollongabba, and I realized there that there was so many problems within the business, and I wanted to be able to implement change. But I wasn't given or took the responsibility on, because it was already managed in that way. So what I learned from that experience, seeing that there wasn't many opportunities there, or opportunities, I suppose it was a bit of a negative experience, because I saw there were so many people exploited in that process, that it actually gave me the drive to build a business where I build a model that kind of wipes away exploitation. So I wanted to kind of take that as an experience, and then, you know, turn it on its head. And then that really kind of built my mission. So I used that experience to propel forward. So as soon as I left the manufacturing place, I actually built All Things Fee straight away. So I went searching for suppliers, found there was a lot of fast fashion suppliers. So I had to kind of like wade my way through and find ones that were, had an ethical model. And then I found a few, and then I started talking to my friends and people that I knew about the product. I instinctively, within a week, I was researching not-for-profits because I knew I wanted to, build a donation package as part of the Purchase with Purpose model. And then, that's how it flowed. And then I started doing gatherings and kind of building the momentum. And now it's still growing. So we're getting there, but it's building a lot more momentum now. And we're focusing more on social impact campaigns and collaborations, so we can really, build a bigger impact.
That's awesome. It's funny, actually, a combination of the three of you is probably my personal story. Again, from the UK, I've been in Australia for 11 years now. And I think, firstly, I probably identify with what you were saying, Fee, because I was doing everything that I was being told was right. Like, I was developing my skills. I was going up the ranks in businesses that I was working in. I was making lots of people lots of money through marketing and graphic design and stuff like that. And so everything on paper was looking all right. But then, same as you, Karen, I kept suffering burnout time and time again. And I decided that the solution was going to be that I would start my own business. And then, obviously, needless to say, starting your own business whilst in a full-time job, it doesn't necessarily work. But you know what? After I left and was working in my business full-time, it actually took me ages and quite a spiritual journey, I think, to actually realize how disrupted I was by the practices that were being done in the employment, because there were things like company culture that I wasn't happy with, and then unethical buying, unsustainable solutions. And I think that looking back at who I was and who I am now, I think that one of the major reasons why I was burning out so much is that I was just doing everything that I could, but it wasn't leading me to an end goal that I was happy with. And so it would just eventually pull the wind from underneath me and basically bring me back to earth. And I couldn't understand why I was constantly facing these same issues over and over again. If you don't mind, I might go a little bit off topic because I think that we have discussed quite a bit about our impact models already, and I think that actually one important thing to probably discuss is how you align your personal values with your business, because I personally have found that that's what helps me know what my direction is, and also helps me measure my success, and worried less about not making that massive impact, and really realizing that I am making an impact every day because I'm on my vision. So Claire, do you have personal values that you have integrated into your business?
And throughout probably the last 10 years, it's something that I had really started to pay attention to. So 2010 was kind of my peak burnout stage. So a lot of kind of psychology sessions around my personal values, and really when you experience burnout, you really very quickly realize what's important, and actually being a healthy, well person is paramount. So I had a lot of support in that time. I had a brilliant psychologist that I saw who taught me a lot about kind of loving myself and then understanding my own values, and then helped me kind of get confident to I did a year in a not-for-profit in a palliative care consortium in Melbourne, in Carlton, as a transition back to my industry and back into kind of working, because I was like, fuck planning, sorry, excuse my language, but that is not for me. If no one wants to do a good job in this world through planning, I'm just going to go and do something else. And then I realized once I got my confidence back and was like, no, I actually still really love this. And that is why I did that. And I haven't done these things by mistake. So then I, probably not aligning with not burning out again, worked very, very hard to feel like I was making up for the time that I missed, but very consciously picking that. And then did a fantastic leadership communication course through the property council, which was a values aligned thing. And then I realized that my personal values really form who I am as a leader, and that I was seeing my teams thriving by seeing them as people and understanding their dominant personality traits, and why we were kind of the most difficult person in my team had actually never had anybody sit down and tell him honestly that his behavior is inappropriate in the workplace. And he was American, and then I realized it's a cultural thing, and for him the office was really different. So he taught me a lot about being a leader, and then through kind of establishing the business myself in the last kind of few months of really refining the new direction of the business that I'm hoping to launch soon, through Rachel and I are in the same kind of business mentoring course. That's how we met. They've taken us through this amazing values journey. So I don't know if anyone's done the VIA values online thing. So I did that kind of 7 years ago, and I did it again, and my top values are really similar. And so then I thought about how that applied to my work, and I just feel so confident in the direction of the business because my personal values and my professional values align so much with what the industry and the world needs that I'm feeling kind of supercharged because I've got that alignment, and I really understand kind of my strengths and why I want to make a difference. My top values are like love, kindness, and hope. And so that just emanates out of doing that again, really helped me articulate what the purpose of the business was. So to me, I think if you have your own business and it's business for good, you can't really separate your personal values from that because you're not bound by anyone else's rules or society's norms about how you do business. And women are so innovative because we have to be. Like, something I left out of my story was I actually started a business by accident on mat leave because I didn't have a job to go back to. We'd moved to Queensland and I had a 12-month contract that ended like when my baby was like 3 weeks old, and I was like, well, I'm not going to come back for 2 weeks when she's 3 weeks old. So it was kind of necessity, and I've been trying to shape it to what I want. And values alignment is like, why would I do this if it wasn't? So to me, it just seemed like a no-brainer to kind of come back to that and realize that that's just me as a person, and everything I've kind of lived and experienced and learned influences the way that I do projects and coach people to do good things.
How about you, Karen?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think with the way we all are, I suppose our entrepreneurial spirit is you kind of go on your journey growing what you're doing in your business because of your values. So for me, yeah, there's a lot of values that are showing sort of like what I live and breathe is what's created where I am today. But the two that kind of stand out for me is probably the first one is around integrity. So like, I've done a lot of leadership training and all sorts of things. And the biggest thing I remember is like in leadership is when you see something, you do something. And so when I was working in, the sustainability space, and then it started to get onto climate change and starting to think about this problem solving, like, well, climate change is a big issue. If we're going to do something about this, we need to get lots of people on board. So that's sort of how I got involved in that Bendigo Sustainability Group. But then also through that, I was thinking, well, if we're going to make that change, we also need to, we don't just need the science change, we actually need the people change and the culture change. And so I kept following my integrity and like, how am I going to do this? And that's sort of how I evolved Make a Change in the first place, to create that initiatives that will generate that big culture change that's needed. And yeah, it's a big undertaking, but it's just who I am and what I'm up for. So that's that side. And then the other one is actually around inclusion. So I didn't really think about this until I maybe just reflected on it more recently in what we do. But everything that we do is all about involving more people, because so many times you see like experts or people that are already involved in a particular issue. And climate change is a good one of that, but it's very hard to bring new people along. And so what we've done with our programs is how do we make sure that everything is languaged and communicated in a way that even non-technical people can understand it. It's not political. It's very much listening to where the people are at and how it aligns with what they're interested in, so to bring them along. And also with that inclusion side is also thinking about every time we run something, making sure that it involves that people, it's accessible. So if it's, you know, in previously when it's more face-to-face stuff, venues are accessible and all that sort of thing, but even online, making sure, like when we're doing Zoom workshops, we're making sure we're giving extra training for people that, because working regional communities, there are barriers to technology as well, making sure that we're really supporting people to get through those barriers of being involved. So that's the inclusion side, which is so essential to the work that we do.
Absolutely. Oh, there's quite a few things that you touched on there that I could probably talk to you about all day.
Yeah, probably.
How about you, Fee? What values do you integrate into your personal values? Do you integrate into your business?
Well, I think it's really important to notice what your higher values are and what your lower values are, because I think that's also shaped our experiences. So I think obviously with our work experience, because we've been, you know, unhappy or unfulfilled in those spaces, it's because we've been living our lower values, and then having that self-awareness of, you know, what our higher values are really shapes our, you know, experiences going forward. So I've done a lot of self-development over the years, and I think you don't realize how important that is, especially in your business growth, because your business is a reflection of yourself, and it grows as you grow. And your impact grows furthermore when you're more passionate about, you know, living those values. So I'd say, one of mine is very similar to Karen's, which is integrity around that. So doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, is kind of a real core value of mine. And also care through action as well. So don't just, you know, say you're going to do something, actually follow through. And I really, when I see people doing that, I'm like, yes, that's the kind of person or kind of people I want to surround myself with. And that really, if I'm once I'm living those values, I feel more fulfilled in my day, and you know, minutes of the day as well. If you feel like that your goals or your tasks are aligned with your values, you feel more productive as well. So you don't, you know, it can lead to self-sabotage if you are leading to your lower values. So it's really important to be aware of them. So mine would be around integrity and care through action, and trust as well, being able to instinctively trust the people that you surround yourself with, and also being a little bit more pickier with who you spend your time with as well, to make sure that they align with you, and also, you know, that we've got each other's best interests at heart.
Absolutely. My personal values are love, peace, and growth. And I realise that with the work that I do, and creating my vision statement together with Thrive, Leading Better Business, just really helps me stay on my values all the time. And so again, another reason why I probably started this group interview scenario is because I still wanted to do something aligned with my vision, aligned with my values, regardless of whether I was actually technically working for a client, or if I could still stay on purpose and still help connect and inspire people during this time, which, I mean, obviously here in Australia it looks like that hopefully barriers are lifting, and we're starting to create this regeneration, but we also have to be very thankful that we are in a country that we haven't been as affected by COVID-19 specifically, compared to a lot of the other countries around the world, and what that looks like for us compared to and how we might be able to help overseas with the work that we're doing. One thing Karen, you touched on was about so almost like measuring your success by knowing, and success is such a difficult word to really put together on paper, but what do you do to like measure if you are on a on path, and making sure that you are continuously making a positive impact in the work that you're doing?
So I think I just keep a mental note, actually, because I just keep thinking, as long as I'm moving forward with where I was, say, a year ago to where I am, then I'm, you know, as long as I'm progressing. So it could be in the type of projects that we're running, in the clients that we're working with, you know, in the regions that the work that we're reaching. I guess, yeah, thinking about those types of things, as long as I'm progressing those, then I feel like I'm measuring, yeah, my success in that way. And even in this COVID-19 situation, everything's been totally disrupted, but it's still, we can still see successes because we've created new initiatives that have gained a lot of interest in building resilience in communities or building resilience in creative industries. And we're already seeing results of that as well. So although, you know, on paper you might say, oh, well, you've gone backwards because everything's almost stopped, there is still a lot of great progress. So it's always just thinking about the positives of what we've achieved and the skills we've grown and the team we've built. Yeah, it's just a number of things. And another thing with this recent transition is we've just had to go through transitioning everything to online format. So even that is a breakthrough for us, because yes, we were doing online engagement for participation. We weren't running online workshops, but now we're able to do that, and we're getting better and better at that. So yeah, just always thinking, how are we progressing in those little things and how they're adding up overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that you mentioned was trying to keep your communications really simple, so you could let people know about the sustainability aspects or what you're doing, just in a really personable way. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, just as an example, so I touched on climate change because that is a program, that's something that we've been working on in the last 3 years. And what we ended up doing was thinking about how we're going to connect this topic to regional people in regional areas, where there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of alignment with politics. What we ended up doing was we didn't talk about climate change. We ended up creating a program called Ramp Up Resilience. And that really resonated a lot more with people, because it wasn't about, this is an issue that you're being told what to do. We started talking to people in the community with a question, and we just listened. So we started with a question, well, what does resilience mean to you? And we went out and talked to all different people. We created little videos and we put it out there as a way to engage with the broader community. And then that then evolved through a series of programs and conversations and initiatives to the conversation, well, what can you do to address the longer term issues that are coming in as a result of climate change or other things. And that helped softly introduce that, but it involved so many more people, as opposed to just saying straight away, we're talking about climate change, what do you think? Oh no, climate change doesn't exist, you know, like you're already just putting a barrier. Whereas if you ask the question and you're listening to them and genuinely listening authentically, not just so that you can tick a box, then yeah, it's how we've been able to engage a lot more people.
I love that. I love that, because that totally sticks within your aligned values as well.
Yeah.
Keeping that integrity is very important. Claire, Fee, do you have any tips on how you measure your positive impact, or how do you communicate your success?
So mine is, I suppose it's with momentum. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to, make this amount of money, or, make this amount of impact. And if we don't, then, we can feel like we're not as productive. So I think it's, a day-to-day measurement of, how many people have I spoken to today, and, how many people have I had really great conversations with, instead of just looking at the end result. just looking at enjoying the process of creating momentum for yourself. So, you know, people I've spoken to or reached out to 2 weeks ago are only just getting back to me now. And that's okay, because it's the right time for them. So it means that it's all about timing, and you just have to be there at the right time. For when people are ready to make the decision to, you know, be more conscious buyers or just be, you know, a part of the conversation. And I think going back to what Karen said as well with the sustainability movement, it is about starting that conversation, because a lot of people want to push it under the carpet because it doesn't immediately impact them, and that's just human nature. So it's just having that understanding that it is affecting everyone and it is a real issue, but what can we do, as in little things every day, just to reduce our negative impact on the environment. So, and I think aligning with our values as well is more important on that aspect, because the more we're aware of ourselves and take care of ourselves and others, then we'll take care of the environment around us. So we'll just have more pride in that aspect.
Absolutely. I love the idea of having a momentum book, the momentum versus the things that we've got done in the day, like Claire mentioned earlier. I love the idea of actually having something like that to actually show, this is how I created what I did. It was having every conversation that you had and was all part of the positive change that you are trying to create. And yeah, not limiting yourself by not necessarily reaching that sales target or impact goal that you originally created, but really like being proud from doing what you're doing on a daily minute by minute basis.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you, Claire?
Look, this is something that I have been thinking about a lot, because I'm really only just starting to get into this space of doing what I really love to do. So I'd still describe this side of the business as startup. So I've been like, oh, is it B Corp? Is it 1% for the planet? What do I do? And then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do small things every day. So, and I'm doing Mindful in May at the moment. And so just before COVID restrictions I just started some conversations in my community, because I've got all these ideas about what would improve my day-to-day life. And I just did a call out because I was like, I heard there's a community garden. So I've been working with a group of women, men are welcome, no men came. And I've just been doing nice things for them. So I've got a whole heap of nature play kits I'm putting together and just dropping off to them. It's not costing me much per them, but it's just about keeping that relationship and connection to people in my community and listening to their ideas. And the funding grant that we put in was just made so much better by just sitting and asking them like what would make their lives better day to day, really, really small things. So I'm such a big picture, long term, like planning for 30 years policy change, where it's a really thankless thing. So my thing is just, if you I'm just talking to people everywhere, and I think COVID has made me like the friendliest version of myself. But the lady who does the sourdough at the market on Saturday and I are now friends, because my kids were crazy in their pre-COVID, and she remembered my kids. She goes, oh yeah, they were so cute. And just talking to them and just starting to tell people what I do and saying, hey, do you have a cool idea? Do you need some help implementing it? Or just, most of the time people have great ideas and they just need the confidence to like do it. And I was like, oh, what do? I started out with this model of kind of, oh, well, if I've got not much money but I've got lots of time, then I use my skills and expertise. And if I've got no time and money, I give money. But in talking to people, I've realized actually it's not money, it's empowerment that people need, and help to make their great ideas a reality and help them kind of see they could do it. I'm working with our local business and tourism association because Fran had said there was $7,500 for post-COVID tourism recovery. So I contacted a guy that I barely know who wrote a letter of support for this project. And I said, hey, I heard there's some funding. What can I do to help? I know how to do this stuff. It's not my forte, but I'd love to help come up with some ideas of what you can do. And the person leading that goes, oh, I can't do anything with $7,500. I was like, if you gave me $750, I could do a lot. If you gave me $7.50, I could still get you impact. So I think often people just want that really big goal. So the way that I'm modeling my impact is really, really, really micro projects based on an issue of kind of social justice that I care about. And so equity in the urban environment, inclusion, all of those things that I could really relate to in what Karen's kind of doing in that programming. But just having these conversations with 6 women, I've now got 6 community leaders that if we get this grant funding, they barely need me. And I think so often governments think, oh, we're going to come in, we're going to do this huge community champion program, which are excellent, and there's a role for that. But for me, I've just realized it's that really micro stuff that makes a huge difference in people's day-to-day lives. So whilst working over here in the long-term stuff, my heart is on fire when you're just helping solve those day-to-day things like, hey, it's really hard to cross the road with my pram there, and I really want to get to that playground, but I just don't, because I can't handle 2 kids at that road. So advocating for safer crossing on one portion of road could improve the lives of like hundreds of parents that live this side of the street that divides our community. So to me, I'm just using what I have now to do whatever I can week to week. So I'm just running a few series of kindness programs with the money that I can afford, which isn't much at the moment, to be honest. But I'm just looking at how do I do little things and how do I make it better with the skills and time and money that I have, just because that's what I like doing, really. And I can see that evolving over time and maybe signing up to something a bit more because I like the concept of something for here and something for there. So I'm trying to find a partner to kind of still have that international impact, because it's basic needs like food, water, sanitation. And whereas here we're talking about making it easy to get to a playground. So the relativity of that still is important to me.
It is important to recognise, like you said, just by simply creating a safe crossing can also not just help the people that need to cross the road, but then if you think about the community conversations that can happen when the people that have not necessarily been able to talk like now can, so you've got such a ongoing ripple effect with what you do. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs that either want to start or adapt their business to have a impact model?
I think just take one step, pick one thing, focus on that, and just keep it small and do that well. I think so often you want to do everything, and good things take time, and I think getting something small right makes a big difference. And even I was really inspired hearing about kind of getting the message out there. Conscious fashion is something that I've really now starting to think about. I think at different stages of your life you have different headspace for different things, and my best friend lives in the US, and I had posted something on my Instagram from Ethical Made Easy. So Jasmine's in New Zealand. So I had posted something because quite a few people had liked something I'd posted and sent a few messages saying, hey, cool, I never think about that stuff. Now I'm going to. And so I think even though that doesn't relate to what I do as a town planner or a placemaker, but every person makes decisions in their own lives. So the more, maybe you're not talking about something in the fashion industry, maybe you're sharing about how you did that slow transition. So her post was about doing something imperfectly, like an imperfect vegan, or just starting somewhere, because I get overwhelmed because I want to do everything, but at the moment I can't afford to. Or I'm going to be honest, I really like H&M t-shirts, but that's been like a big issue. And so for me, it's that bringing that conscious awareness to decisions in your personal life and your business. And we started in our personal life, and that's come across to our business. So every supplier that we're using is either like a young creative, or they're a social enterprise, or there's something else. So other people that have that similar kind of impact where we can. So not many accountants are social enterprises. So there's some services that you can't, but looking to find those other suppliers. So I think it's just looking at yourself and then some things and where you want to go and just starting somewhere.
Yeah, and obviously these things can constantly evolve and develop, so to not get hung up on not doing everything from the beginning, it's better to start doing like one small thing than not do it at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I find the social enterprise stuff has been, if I'm honest, overwhelming for me, because I feel like I have to sign up to this 50% profit or 1% for the planet, and it feels too much for me right now. So I'm just doing what I can do now, and I know that that will change. So I think just do what you can cope with.
Yeah, well,
take on what you can.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that, Claire, because my personal belief is so social enterprise doesn't necessarily have a specific formula at the moment, although in Europe, and I believe in Victoria, and I think other states are starting to come on, it's generally being defined as 51% of your profits are reinvested back into your mission. And so I understand that it can be overwhelming to do those things, but if you know that you're doing purposeful work anyway, and that if you do get to the stage in your business that you are making a profit and that you can use those profits to do more good, and whether that would be in time or money, there are lots of, or employment, or there's lots of ways that you can communicate the impact. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you give 51% of your profits away to
and that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I just look at that at the moment it's week to week. Before it was month to month, and it's just at the moment in COVID helping where I can help with the means that I have. So and that is like this every week. So
absolutely.
yeah, I think sometimes people I don't feel like I'm alone in that feeling like you've got to fit into something, because when I've looked into it, there is no quantifiable, but then you feel like you're almost an imposter in that space, because I actually think I'm okay making a profit. I'm not going to do this if I don't make money, because I need to eat and still want to earn money, and I'm not shy about making money. I want to make money so I can do more good. And I think sometimes you feel like then you don't fit with the not-for-profit crowd, because I don't know, like I just feel sometimes out of kind of place in that space, but I'm comfortable with it now.
Absolutely. And there is a bit of a myth about what social enterprise is and how it relates to not-for-profits. There are a lot of people out there that might think that social enterprise equals not-for-profit, but that's obviously not the case, and that's one of the reasons why we can all be here today to talk about it more. How about you, Karen? Do you have any advice that you would give to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so depending on what month it is, sometimes I might say don't do it, just to be really honest, but seriously, I think you kind of, I think one of the biggest things is definitely go for it, but be wary of your expectations. So have a big vision, and always keep that vision in mind, but then pair it back to what you can do this next 3 months or this month or this week, but also keep continuing to go back to the vision, because so often you can get bogged down in the day-to-day or the challenges or what you're working on now, and that is important, but if you lose your vision, you lose your passion, and you lose the bigger picture, then it does get really hard. Whereas if you keep the bigger picture in mind and keep reviewing it, and you'll still evolve it as you go, that will really, really help. And then just that expectation is like making sure you've got the support around you to keep going, especially on those hard days. So I'm very, very lucky. I've got a supportive husband, I've got a supportive family, I've got a supportive team. I've got people that share the responsibility of the organisation with me. So we've got always people that we can talk to if we're having the days, and I'm part of a co-working space as well. So if no one else wants to talk to me, my co-workers that aren't involved in my business, I can talk to and keep getting through as well. And then I think it's going back to one of the themes we mentioned earlier with Claire was celebrate where you're at, because it's so easy to forget when you do have that big vision. Make sure you keep acknowledging the achievement, definitely.
Absolutely. And Fee, do you have any advice?
I think both is really amazing advice from both of you, Claire and Karen. And I completely agree, just to get really clear on your message and your vision will definitely shape how you turn up in different spaces as well. So obviously there's so many channels we can use as well, so it can be overwhelming to say, should I be on LinkedIn every day? Should I be on Facebook? Should I be on Instagram? And it's really hard to find your niche within those spaces, because you can use them for so many different things. But I think it's just take each day as it comes. Do you feel inspired today to post on LinkedIn? Because when it comes from a heart-centered space, you create more engagement that way. and people relate to you more, so it resonates and it holds a better message. And I'd say what I did right initially was building the brand, which has a really good message, but that's also growing as well. So just to be aware that, you know, just because you've built the brand, it doesn't stay the same, and that you can always go back to the purpose and the mission, and you can change it and edit as you go, because you know, the world is always changing, so you can evolve with it, and not to put too much pressure on yourself as well, that, you know, you have to be everything, as Karen said. And obviously yeah, just making sure that obviously at the end of the day, if you are building a social enterprise, it's still a business, so it does need to make profit, and don't be scared to, you know, really sell yourself and your business methodology, that, you know, you are okay, it is okay to make profit, and at the end of the day, business makes the world go round. So you know, we can make profit, it's just what we do with it at the end of the day that makes a difference. So yeah, it's the more you make, the more impact you can create as well. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And as you go through each stage of business, especially if it's constantly growing, then of course you're going to constantly evolve, and your message is going to potentially change, because your impact could potentially like be far greater, or be doing various different things. And so yeah, I agree with what you're saying there about actually making sure that your brand evolves with your messaging and everything that you're doing, because nothing has to be static. Not in 2020.
exactly. Yeah.
Did anyone have anything to add before we go to our quick fire round?
No, it's been really great. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, so Claire, I'll start with you. We just got a little quick fire round at the end. Passion or purpose?
Oh, passion with purpose.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
An introverted extrovert. Sorry, I didn't mean to be giving you answers. I'm a bit of both. Depends on where I'm at.
Yeah.
Situation.
Lead or follow?
Lead. Sorry.
Do you like to ask for help, or do you like to do it yourself?
I like to do it myself, but I like to do it with other people, if that makes sense. So a bit of both.
Are you a visionary or a creative?
Creative visionary. Sorry, I think I'm both.
Upskill or outsource?
Upskill always, but outsource when it's not. You can't do everything. I think that's an important thing. I used to think I could learn how to do everything, which is why I've studied at university for 50 million years, and why I tried to do everything for the business myself. And this course I'm doing is really just being like, okay, do you want to do it? I could learn how to do that. No, so learning to let go is something that I'm focusing on. Outsource is my current phase.
Absolutely. And in these recent times, what was your decision? Pivot or pause?
Pause. Yeah. And dream big, and that's actually paid huge dividends. At first, I felt this fear that I needed to take everything online, but I'm not at the point that Karen's on, that she could take everything online. And I actually thought, no, that's not right for me. I could upskill and do that, but it didn't feel right. It was coming from a place of fear, not excitement. And what was exciting me is now what is so clear about where my business is heading, and this space I want to create for women, that had I pushed into telling people not to pause projects because I can take them online when it wasn't the right time for them to be doing that. They had enough on, and this could wait. That now I've actually found what I really should be doing. So the pause has been a blessing.
I love that. Karen, we'll do the same quick fire round to you. So passion or purpose?
Can I do both? Is that allowed? I'm like you, Claire. Most of them. No.
Introvert or extrovert?
I think generally extrovert, but I definitely have loved being self-isolating with my family and being introverted. Really indulging in that.
I have to agree with that Lead or follow?
Lead. Yeah.
Ask for help or do it yourself?
A bit of both, definitely. Yeah.
Visionary or creative?
It's probably more visionary, but I do have a creative side, and I now have a creative team, which is helpful.
Yeah, that's so good. Upskill or outsource?
Outsource is, I prefer to outsource, but I am a bit of a, what do they call it? Entrepreneurs are dopreneurs. I am a bit of a doer. So I've had to learn very much that outsourcing a lot, but still getting there, but definitely outsource is my preference, so that, you can focus on the things that you want to do, a bit like Claire.
Yeah, well, that's a great tip to probably give to our viewers, is also, you can try and do it all, but you could also outsource and just do what you're really good at. And pivot or pause, what did you do in?
Pivot, definitely. Because in our work, in that, resilient and recovery for communities, our work is definitely aligned. And I didn't mention this earlier, but that week when everything happened, where the restrictions were first implemented, we had a workshop we were running called Digital Communities for the creative industry, and it was meant to be face to face. And we thought, no way, we have to run this for these creatives, because they definitely need to do it. And we had 40 creatives come, and they just felt so, when the 40 faces came online, and we just saw this community all online in that really stressful week, that did help them a lot. So and it helped us to learn and grow. So we have pivoted, and I think that was right, as you were saying, Claire, what's right for your business. For us, pivoting was definitely the thing for us to do for where we're at.
Awesome. And Fee, we'll come on to your quick fire round. Passion or purpose?
Purpose.
Introvert or extrovert?
Can I say both when the situation calls for it? But I think in business sometimes you show up more as an extrovert, and then when you're working on strategy, you're an introvert. So both.
Definitely. Lead or follow?
Lead.
Ask for help or do it yourself?
Can I say delegate? I'm really good at delegating. Nice. I'm just saying, I really enjoy finding out what people are good at, and then working to their strengths, because I believe in working on your strengths within your values, and then your weaknesses within your values, instead of just concentrating time on your weaknesses.
Absolutely. Visionary or creative?
Visionary.
Upskill or outsource?
A bit of both when it calls for it.
And what did you do in these times of COVID? Did you pivot or pause?
I pivoted. So initially I had a physical store in Virginia and the north side of Brisbane. So my store had to close, unfortunately, for a couple of months. It is reopening this Saturday, which is exciting. But I'm expecting a really slow progress. And I don't think it will pick up as normal, or what the new normal is, for another 6 to 12 months. So I think it's just, really utilizing that time to show up where your audience is. So finding out where they are. So I really used this time I've created isolation packs and reached out to more people than I normally would, and showed up more digitally as well. And using that time to upskill, to really take the time to do, maybe some online courses, or watch more YouTube videos on what you want to be better at. Because I feel like if you want to do something, you need to become an expert in it. So it's really good to use that time wisely, but pivoting, definitely.
I did notice that you had done a few collaborations. Is that something that we expect to see for All Things Fee in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm collaborating with more local businesses now, in regards to handmade products and ethically sourced products. So really kind of empowering others, that they do have a right to be in that space. And the more we work together, the bigger impact we can create.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you all so much for showing up today. I am incredibly grateful for your time, and it's so lovely to see your faces and connect, and I really hope that we can use this today to help inspire other people.
Thanks, and great to meet you, everyone.
You too, super inspiring. Thanks, Wade.